that day when the man tried to sell me those 2 kids was, I believe, was a knock from God, knocking me on the head. Hey, wake up. There's something I've trained you to do. They're 6 to 10 years old, and they're sold all over that region for sometimes $10,000 to $15,000. We want to stop that too. There is hope on the other side. We just want to give them hope again because most of them don't have hope. They feel stuck in that environment.
Thank you for joining Mercy Today. How do mercy and compassion break down barriers and change everything? How do they bring hope? Be inspired as our guests share about the life-changing, soul-impacting work through the ministry of Mercy, Inc. and its partners. Here's your host, Dr. Dan Critches.
Hey, really happy to welcome you to this episode of Mercy Today Radio. Here we are telling the story again and still about how compassion changes everything. We get to tell the world about the great work of Mercy, Inc. and its friends and partners really around the world and all kinds of wonderful things that God is doing through this organization, Mercy, Inc. So, we all have a heart for the powerless and the vulnerable. And when we hear heart-wrenching stories, we want to stand up and shout, "Can't somebody do something?" Well, on our show today, we're going to learn about some powerless, vulnerable people and what someone is doing about it. That's the good news. We're going to bring that right along with this episode. The title is God's Agents of Rescue. So, friend, I want to welcome you to the discussion and invite you to lean in. This is going to be some really powerful stuff you want to hear. So I encourage you to open your heart and listen to the end, because in studio today is John. He's the executive director of Silent Bridge and is a partner of Mercy, Inc. I have partner/friend. Well, this Silent Bridge is definitely a partner. So we may talk more about that later. But today's episode, again, is God's Agents of Rescue. So, John, I want to thank you for coming into the studio today, and welcome to Mercy Today Radio.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
I think we were fortunate to have you here, and we're going to be very careful about our conversation, and people will understand why as we get a little bit further into it. So, as I said in the opening, listeners hate the idea of anyone being taken advantage of in any kind of way. So I'd like to invite you to tell us about the focus of your organization, Silent Bridge.
You bet. Well, we're focused on young children that are been exposed to the human sex trafficking trade, specifically young boys and girls of all ages. But our primary focus right now is on young women that are 12 to 18 years old, in some of the most austere locations of the world. And we often call them the forgotten few, who are really the many that are forgotten because of the locations. And really what I mean by that is that they're in places that are not easy to get to in most cases, and probably not some of the safest locations in the world.
Would you think that our listeners would be shocked at some of the things that you know about and are trying to help with? I mean, just the conditions and the way that the children are being taken advantage of. Do you think they would be shocked to know?
Well, they definitely would be.
Okay.
Their life is just,
right.
And the environment they live in is just something that's very hard to fathom. I think that most of the mothers and children would probably tell you that they probably use the phrase, "It's not as bad as you heard, but it's worse than you can ever imagine."
Wow. So you were referring to it a little bit. So tell us about that life in generic form. We don't need details, but what is it like to be locked into that sex traffic prison, and what's their life like?
Well, we have to include, obviously the children, the offspring of the women that are in the sex trade. We can't really talk about it without that, because that situation is something that is a huge calling to my heart. What really affected me the most. The young women in the sex trade and their children are constant victims. And what I mean by that is they have a lack of food, a lack of medical attention, a lack of clean water, access to antibiotics, which you can imagine they need in that environment, education, and most of all, hope, because the children and the mothers can't the mothers can't send their children to a local school in most cases because the children are considered dirty.
And there's no way out.
And there's no way out.
As far as they know.
As far as they know, they don't. And there's they lose hope, and they lose a purpose in life.
Exactly right. So, John, tell me and tell us, why do they matter to you?
Well, the main reason that they matter to me is that because they are the forgotten few, but yet they're the many, and I feel like they have no hope by themselves. And I ask myself and I ask other people to think about: could you fathom, your father telling you that you're the oldest of 7 children, he cannot feed you, and you have to leave at 12 because there's just nothing there to take care of you, and your only option is, in a lot of these environments, is working in a sweat factory, selling your body on the streets, or being radicalized in a private school. Which do you choose?
Yeah.
And or that your parents gave you as a child bride at the age of 12 to an 80-year-old man who beats you and at times even trays you to his friends as a favor or punishment. And so I've never in my life liked bullies. It's always bothered me. And I guess that's why they matter to me. I feel like that in a way they're being bullied.
Yeah.
And being taken advantage of. And I've never liked seeing anybody in my life being taken advantage of.
And somehow you want to get in the way.
Somehow I want to get in the way.
And the victim, right?
I want to get in the way. These young women and the children. I mean, can any of us imagine never being able to see your grandparents, your brothers, and your sisters again? Or if by chance you were able to years later after you possibly escaped from the brothel or that environment or the sex trade or return home from another country, can you ever imagine having to look at them and the shame that you would have in your face?
Wow. People that do stuff like what you do, you stand up, it's not in your normal world. You must feel a calling, a special assignment. So I titled this one, God's Agents of Rescue. And it seems like he has called you and is raising you up to do this work, you and a bunch of others.
Yes.
Does that seem like that? So because you don't live over there in Asia.
No.
And so it's a lot of trouble, a lot of expense.
It is.
And it's not easy for you to, but you, with that calling and that passion, you do what you wouldn't ordinarily do because of that passion.
That's true.
Yeah. I introduced you and mentioned your name, the name of the organization. Is it okay for people to go check out your website?
It is okay for people to check out the website.
So the name of the organization is Silent Bridge, and it's .com?
It's .org.
.org, okay. So tell us about the name Silent Bridge. I heard that story on the phone, but I think our listeners would like to hear it.
So the name Silent Bridge came from an experience that I had in, we'll call it Country X. There's a late night knock on the door of my hotel room, and there was a man standing there, and he had a very young 5 or 6-year-old boy and a girl, and he wanted to sell them to me. I didn't know why. I found out later it was because this man sold children for sex and sold them for people to buy them and take them wherever they wanted them to. I didn't know the hotel that I was at had that kind of activity going on, but it was in kind of an austere location. But the long story short is that happened, and then it really bothered me, but I'm ashamed to say that in the beginning, it was, I felt like it wasn't my problem when I saw that. And the second incident happened shortly thereafter. I was at another location several months later, and at a hotel, I had to go to a certain place, and it wasn't a very safe city, and I asked how to get there. Man, it was in a third world country, and the desk clerk told me how to get there, but said, be careful, this one bridge is very dangerous, and told me some of the activity that happened in that area. When I was walking towards that bridge, I heard a bunch of screaming, and I saw a young girl come out from under the bridge. There was a bunch of teenagers, late teenagers, probably 16, some men maybe even 21 around her. Her clothes were ripped. I could tell what had happened to her based upon my past careers. She ran. She was running towards me, actually, and then turned and had to take a right and go over the bridge. She got towards the top of the bridge. It was not a real long footbridge. She turned towards me, and she looked just like my granddaughter. And that was definitely the catalyst that made me say something that I was going to do something about it.
Yeah.
And because those are only 2 incidents. I could talk for hours about incidents that I saw in places that I've been, but that's kind of how, and then the silent part, the 2 pieces, silent and bridge, is that the silent part came from working with other organizations when I first came back and seeing kind of the way that they do business. And again, the thing about videos, and this is what we did, and for some of them, and they were doing good work, but it wasn't really the pathway I wanted to take. It made me feel like it was more, I wanted it to be just about the children, not about us. That's the silent part. And of course, the bridge part was the story about my granddaughter and getting her to a safe, from one side of the unsafe part of the bridge to the other side, and Silent Bridge was born.
Perfect. And that's what I want to hear about. What happens after the girls or the boys, what these kids are rescued? And we'll get back to that right after the break, so don't go away, folks.
I'm Brad Swinford with Salem Concrete Paving. It's a privilege to partner with Mercy, Inc., who provides hope to people around the world by meeting critical needs and introducing people to Jesus. I know that through Mercy, Inc., I'm investing in God's kingdom as they spread the love and gospel of Christ around the world. So please join me in supporting Mercy, Inc. and MercyToday Radio by praying or going to their website at MercyToday.global. Thank you.
This is Doug Hoffman, the Executive Director for Mercy, Inc. I want to introduce you to our Mercy Minutes. Today I'm going to take you to South Asia. And as we look at South Asia, we've planted over 4,100 water wells for drinking water and for cattle. And as those wells have gone into villages, they've transformed lives. Because before that, oftentimes the job of bringing water home fell on the mother or the wife. And sometimes she would walk for an hour to get to clean water. That's one way, and then walk for an hour back. All of a sudden, she had more time to spend with her children. All of a sudden, she had more time to be able to have conversation. There was more time with which we could share Christ with her. More time to learn more about who Jesus really is. It's empowering.
Now's the time to become a part of something greater in our community. You and your organization can partner with Mercy Today and change the lives of thousands around the world. Our team of business professionals can also come alongside you and help you grow your organization to maximize your impact. Our goal is to help you increase your quadruple bottom line: people, planet, profit, and purpose. Consider being a sponsor of Mercy Today. Visit our website at MercyToday.global.
Businesses can partner with this program and fund missions. Go to MercyToday.global and click on the Business Resources link. Welcome back. We are talking with John. He was the founder and director of Silent Bridge. And the topic title for today's episode is God's Agents of Rescue. And John, before the break, I mentioned I was going to ask you about what happens after the kids. You were talking about a focus on 12 to 18-year-olds. What happens after the rescue? And I want to insert this observation because you mentioned the word hope and hopelessness. I think when they're stuck, if they're stuck in the brothel, stuck in the trade, I mean, it's like being in prison. Yes. There is no way out, and it's hopeless. So what you bring through what you do, and that's what we're going to ask about next, you bring that element of hope. Because when you show up in somewhere along the line of that life, they say, there is hope, and I can have a better life. So tell us about that. What is it that, without any details, of course, but what happens after they are rescued, after you've achieved that first step?
Well, first of all, we have to look at really, there's a difference between hard rescues and soft rescues. Mm-hmm. So hard rescue is you've probably seen on TV before, YouTube, somebody's actually going in and removing the
guns and everything.
And it's all on video, and you see their planning, their operations. We're more of the soft rescue, although we can do the hard rescue. We're more of the soft rescue approach. And that, what I mean by that, just to give a real quick example, is the current COVID crisis in Country X. The brothels were shut down. The women weren't able the brothel workers weren't able to feed their children and weren't able to feed themselves. Yeah. And so the idea came up, why don't we go in the back door, soft rescue? We, first of all, developed that rapport with them by providing the relief packages through teaming partners. And then once that rapport is developed, then try to move them get them to allow us to take the children to a safe haven, create a safe haven, put the children there, clothe them, feed them, educate them, then reunite the children with their mothers at a later time in an additional safe haven just for the mothers and children. And then at that point, move them on to a location where they can get training for knowledge, skills, and abilities to survive in the real world. And then move them on later to microloans so they can be self-sufficient and hand walk them across that bridge and get them to the other side.
Yeah. because they grew up in that environment and they know nothing, right? They've got no job skills. They've got nothing. They don't know how to start a business or how to sell bread or anything. Is that
They
right?
don't. Some of them from 12 years old were pregnant at 13 and have 2 or 3 kids by 16 or 17 years old. And it's just a horrific environment for them and the children.
And that's when someone stands up and says, why doesn't somebody do something? And there you are. If I just maybe take a little side shot here. You've got a rough voice. You sound like a Rambo kind of a guy. I look like one. And I don't know how much you want to tell us about your background, but this is not, you're not coming out of Oxford with a pointy-headed education and, have a good cause. I mean, you're a tough guy.
Well, I don't know that I'm a tough guy, but my background is pretty simple. I've been in public service my entire life. I retired from the military and retired from a large law enforcement agency, and I've been blessed to have some great experiences and be able to serve my country in great ways.
Usually, what happens is when God puts somebody in a spot like that, He has done a lot of prep work. So maybe all those things that you just talked about are preparing you and engaging you, a tough guy with a soft heart.
I would hope that that's who I am.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Anything more about what happens after? I mean, we with the soft rescue and the clothing and feeding and medical attention and healthcare and skills and all that kind of thing. You give them a whole new. I mean, that's the bridge, right? You go from the bad side over to there is hope again on the other side.
There is hope on the other side. We just want to give them hope again because most of them don't have hope. They feel stuck in that environment. They don't have contact with their family. They don't. In most cases, they don't have a phone, or their phone service is very limited based upon their handlers.
Right.
We just want to give them hope again and just shine that on them if we can. And there's many other things too that we can do. Each country is unique. Country X may be that we go in the back door. Country Y may be because of the political environment and everything else, and the geography is that we have a bridge monitoring project, monitoring 11 bridges moving from one country to the other, where there's 20,000 orphans moved every year from one country to another, and they're moved in the sex training camps. They're 6 to 10 years old, and they're sold all over that region for sometimes $10,000 to $15,000. We want to stop that too. Right. And each country is going to need a specific, unique plan. Yeah.
I'm hoping that our listeners will be tuning in and maybe picking up on some clues of what they could specifically pray for you and your organization. And I would like to encourage our listeners to go to your website and look around. There's not a lot of detail, but there is some good stuff there, good information, so they can be really tuned in. And I would like listeners, if you want to get in touch with John or with Silent Bridge, just use our connection point. Go to MercyToday.global, and then we will hand off any of those connections over to John. So go to MercyToday.global. This is a fascinating, it's scary, it's depressing, but if you're standing up and say, why doesn't somebody do something? Well, here is John, and he and his organization is doing something. So, John, I know your organization is very new. You incorporated as a nonprofit last year, and so you've been up and running as an organization, as a 501c3 for about a year now, right?
Yes.
And so every leader has to have a vision, and what do you see, or what would you like to see God do and people do over the next, let's say, 2 or 3 years? What does that look like in your visionary imagination?
You better pray about that all the time, that I have the right vision in that area. And we want to be well established in our 4 countries of focus.
Okay.
That with a similar model or models that we know will work. We want to continue to work with the great teaming partner that we have right now. The key is what is the most cost-effective program to make the most significant change, because donors provide money to these programs, and they want to get the biggest bang for their buck.
Right.
And we want to save as many children and save as many of these young women as we can.
If I could just stop you right there. If, listener, if this is stirring up something with you and you want to make a difference, again, contact us, MercyToday.global. If you want to donate money, if you want to pray, whatever you want to do, come alongside this fantastic organization and John as its leader to contact us, and we'll get everything over to John. I hope somebody's getting out their checkbook and wants to write a big $10,000 check. We'd like to let John know that. Right, John?
Yes.
Yes.
We'd appreciate that.
And I'm being a little bit facetious, but not so much, because there are people in our listening audience that can do that. Maybe it's $10,000, maybe it's $10, but they have a heart. They say, I can't continue to know these things and not do anything about it. So anybody can pray. Some can give. And so I want to continue on that line. So you were, is there anything else on the next 2 or 3 years? You've got 4 countries that you mentioned. You're going to build up and continue to focus on those 4. Are you thinking of expanding to others?
Yes, we have 4 countries, and we have a person that's leaving in a couple of weeks to a 5th country to try to establish the contacts that we need with the law enforcement personnel there to help us out.
Right. And a partnership is really important. And I just want to bring in here that Mercy, Inc. is a significant partner, building bridges and partnering together in a lot of strategic and creative ways. And so this radio show is about Mercy, Inc. So I'm delighted to meet you and hear your story, because you are standing up and doing some very, very important things. I want to commend you for that. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
There's some great people that are working with us.
Yeah.
And Mercy's been just a godsend to us.
Can you say how so? Because the executive director of Mercy is right here in the studio with us, and so it's very relevant. Doug is right here. Can you say a little bit more about that, how Mercy is strategically helpful for you?
Well, never having had a nonprofit and having worked in 3 very difficult careers and retiring from them in my life, I thought I had I was surprised at how challenging it is. It's the hardest thing I've ever done to put this together, and I couldn't have done it without Doug's help, because he's been a good mentor. He's a strong business background. He's got an amazing love for the Lord. He's got he's a visionary for me, and when I have questions and send things to him, he always gives me the right answer.
Good. Shout out to Doug over there.
That's
here
for
in
sure.
the studio. Yeah. So I hear that a lot, by the way. So I just want to raise him up and, ask God to continue to bless his work and the connections. And when we start talking about some countries and we mention names and stuff, and I've talked to them on the radio. They're right here zooming in from Nation X or from Continent Y or whatever. So John, how about this? Do you feel like you are doing God's work?
I do, and I believe everyone has a calling, and that I've been called, my entire life to protect our country. And that knock on the door that day when the man tried to sell me those 2 kids I believe, was a knock from God. Knocking me on the head. Hey, wake up!
Yeah.
There's something I've trained you to do, and I want you to do it.
Wow.
And I feel, very, very strongly about that. As in life, God has saved some of my sons. He's led some of my sons to serve Him in some extraordinary ways, and He's comforted me in some of my darkest hours. So I truly believe He's leading me on this mission.
I always find it interesting that God intervenes in our lives and takes us to places that we wouldn't have gone, but He gives us what we need, and it just changes everything. I start a lot of my God stories with, I was minding my own business one day. And that's kind of your story, right? There you are in a hotel room in country X, and a knock on the door, that changed your life.
It did change my life. It did, definitely.
And I want people who are listening to think about, have I had a virtual knock on the door? Has God been moving in my life in a certain way to bring a person, bring a circumstance, an event, a crisis, a need, a thought, something? Because I'm pretty sure that most of us can use a little tweaking in our path, in our journey, and be open and be sensitive and listen to what God is saying to you. It might be through a person, again, through an experience or something else. But if you're sitting in church on Sunday morning, maybe it's the pastor who is saying something, and God just reaches down and kind of touches you with that. Well, listen to that. Trust it. Follow it. So
listen to that knock on the door.
Exactly. Good metaphor. So, man, we are running out of time here, John, but I want to give you an opportunity to say any concluding words that you want to say to our listening audience.
First of all, prayer for not only Mercy and the great work they're doing, but and prayer for the work that we're trying to do.
Right.
Educate yourself on the missions that we've been talking about here. Sign up for newsletters, and more radio shows. Listen to them, and volunteer.
Okay, and they can get that through your website.
They can get that through the website.
So go to MercyToday.global, just put John or Silent or Bridge or Knock or anything, and we'll know what you're talking about. We'll get it over to you. Thank you very much, John, for coming in today. God bless you.
God bless you too. Thank you.
Thank you.
How do you multiply your time, talent, and treasures? By investing in Mercy Today. Whether it's going on a mission outreach halfway around the world or sharing your insights and experiences with others in our local community, our team of business professionals can help you multiply what God has given you. We can help you grow your organization so that you and your fellow work associates can utilize your talents for even greater causes as you multiply your resources to do even more. Join us and become a sponsor of Mercy Today. Visit our website at MercyToday.global. Have you been looking for new ways to grow your organization and have a lasting, eternal impact? Mercy Today has an amazing team of business professionals that have managed small businesses to large corporations, and we want to share that know-how and experience with you. We're also committed our lives to sharing the gospel with compassion and serving the practical needs of communities around the world. Partner with us and become a sponsor of Mercy Today. Visit our website at MercyToday.global.
This is Doug Hoffman, Executive Director for Mercy, Inc. Just thanking you for listening to MercyToday.global.
What a great conversation with John and Silent Bridge. I want you to get involved. And if you have questions about today's topic or about John or about the organizations, you can learn a lot more by going through us at MercyToday.global. We want you to get connected. Find and fill out the Contact Us form, and you can even get a podcast every week. We would just send it to you, get on the list, automatically comes into your inbox as a link. And so we're going to close this portion on the radio because we have a time limitation. But if you're on podcast, you stay on because we're going to wrap up with John with what we call the AfterWords. We're going to have a little bit more discussion, and you want to make sure you get in on that. So I want to thank you for listening today. This is Mercy Today Radio, where we are telling the story of how compassion changes everything. And if I could make a point, it's the compassion for the situation of these kids that is changing everything. I'm your host, Dr. Dan Critchett, wrapping up for now. You want to find out what God is doing in the world today. God bless you, my friend. Goodbye for now. We are moving into the AfterWords portion. Such a encouraging and uplifting time talking to John about the organization, Silent Bridge, and the excellent life-saving work that they're doing. This episode is called God's Agents of Rescue. And if there was any uncertainty in your mind about what that might refer to, well, if you've listened to this show now, you know. So, John, the last question I asked you was, do you view what you do as God's work? And I think it's really important for our listeners, not only that you are agents of rescue and you come in and you pluck somebody out of a horrible, horrible situation, but there's continuity, there's ongoing, there's life ahead. And so we did talk about job training and skills and literacy and schooling and food and all that stuff. We want to know that there is also the very significant spiritual component, because you come to that organization and to your work as a Christ follower. You believe that God has appointed you and called you and equipped you for that. Very, very important. But I would say, like for most of us, it's not okay just to do phase one, fantastic as it is. But what about the rest of the life? So along with the other things, the education and the food and all those things and the sustainability, let's talk about the spiritual aspect, because I'm imagining, correct me if this is not the case, that during life in the brothel, the mothers and the kids probably don't have much opportunity to hear about a spiritual dimension of life. They probably don't have a Bible. They haven't heard about Jesus. They don't know that he loves them, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's all shut out of them. So build that bridge for us, because you have a national partner that will pick up on that spiritual side and help the families, help the mothers and the and the children. Can you tell us about how that works?
Sure. So the national partner that we work with, and through Mercy, has they provide faith-based training, spiritual encouragement at the right time and the right place in Country X, for example, and we hope to be doing the same in the other countries that we've targeted. They provide clothing, food. They are the delivery of not only the clothing and food and sanitation equipment to keep them safe during COVID, for example, but also the delivery vehicle for that spiritual base that these women and the children need so much to help them provide that hope to move on and move across the bridge that we talked about.
Yeah. So we want people to know Jesus because he loves them and he died for them and he wants them to come to him. I'm thinking of the passage where it says, Jesus said, permit the children to come unto me and don't forbid them. And because he had heart, everybody, even the disciples thought, well, this is for grown-ups. And it's not only, right?
Right.
It's for children. Children can understand their helplessness and their need, and they can easily see, gosh, I like this Jesus. I want him to love me. I want him to hold me spiritually. I want to go to heaven. I want to have a relationship. And so with this national partner, and they're all over, right?
Yes.
There's many, many of them, and I'm really excited about that. Yeah. That we have that bridge, because then who knows where they will go on from there, because you take say a 14-year-old, well, what's going to happen in 20 years when that person is 34? And so you build in the spiritual component and the skills and the literacy and all that. You've made a fantastic total life change.
A total life change. And then, the hope in the long run is that we want to stop this cycle. And the people that have been saved and have gone through this process that we mentioned earlier, each of the steps, and their mothers that have seen what has happened and how much better off their children are, especially with God in their life, is that those mothers can come back. Those children, as they grow up, could come back and try to help break the cycle too.
Wow.
And be a true example of what it's like to walk across that bridge and be successful.
Yeah. The preacher in me has to say this, that in a very specific way, like we have been talking about, you enable the delivery from bondage. And I want to say that every listener probably has some level of bondage in their own life, and they need to cross over a bridge, whatever it is. I mean, I don't even want to get specific, but we all struggle with weaknesses or sins or habits or inclinations, whatever. And in a sort of a metaphorical way, we might want to think about this, that we too can be open to God delivering us from our bondage. See, that's the preacher in me that has to say that. But it's so graphic with what you're talking about. I mean, it's very real. And I'm excited about seeing that 10, 20 years down the road, the many, 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 many people who God has rescued through you and your organization. God bless you, John. What a great mission and great work you're doing.
Well, thank you. I'm just so lucky that we have so many great people, the teaming partner and the people that we have that are volunteering tirelessly each week to help us out.
And you're always open to more. So again, I want to put out the appeal. Yeah. If this resonates with you, listener, and you want to know more, do more, get involved more, go to MercyToday.global and just drop us a word or two, and we'll know what you mean. We'll get that over to John, and we'll move further ahead. So maybe again, one last time, any closing words, John? Anything else that has come to mind about the great work that God is doing through you and your organization?
The only thing I'd say again is just that prayer is powerful, and pray for us to have the right vision, the right strategy in the future, and the continued support of the teaming partners that we have and their vision and their mentoring. That's the most important thing to us right now.
A few words, but a big ask, right?
Yes,
and it's counting on God to raise up people and funds and everything to do this great work. So we're going to wrap it up there. Until next time, listener, I pray that you will find out about what is going on, and may God help you be a part of what He is doing in our world today. So join us again. Find us wherever we're going, anywhere in the world, whether it's country X or whether we can even name the country, which we do sometimes. And we'll be going other places. So find all of our shows and a whole lot more at MercyToday.global. So again, God bless you, my friend, and goodbye for now.